Have you ever found yourself sitting alone in a quiet room, the sunlight gently filtering through the curtains? And in that stillness, a heavy thought rises, uninvited but familiar. A thought like, does anyone really think about me anymore? Was my life as meaningful as I hoped? Have I already lived the most important parts of my life? You look around and the house is quieter than it used to be. The phone doesn't ring as often. Your days feel longer but somehow emptier. And in that silence, another thought whispers, maybe this is just the beginning of the end. If you've ever felt this way, I want to tell you something right now. You are not alone. And more importantly, there is nothing wrong with you. Aging is not just a physical journey. It's an emotional, spiritual, and psychological one. And while we were taught how to save money, raise families, and build careers, we were never really taught how to deal with the emotional weight of aging. We were never told how to process the feeling of being left behind, of no longer being needed, of watching people come and go while we stay still, of wondering what our purpose is now when all the old roles have faded. And in that space, toxic thoughts can creep in, not because you're broken, but because you're human. These thoughts don't always scream. Sometimes they whisper so softly we don't even realize they're shaping how we feel. Until we begin to feel small, invisible, forgotten. Thoughts like, I'm no longer useful. It's too late to change. Nobody really cares about me. I'm just a burden now. My best days are behind me. They seem harmless at first, but over time they wear away at your spirit. They pull a curtain over your joy, and they lie to you about your worth. But here's the truth. You are still worthy of peace, of love, of meaning. And in this video, we'll gently look at these 5 toxic thoughts, one by one. We'll explore where they come from, why they hurt us, and how, with care and compassion, we can begin to let them go. This is not about pretending everything's fine. This is about healing what has gone unheard. It's about remembering that no matter your age, your soul is still growing, your heart is still beating, your presence still matters deeply. Let's begin this journey together. Toxic thought 1, I'm no longer useful. Have you ever sat quietly and wondered, what do I really bring to the world now? There was a time when your days were full of people depending on you. You fixed the leaky faucet, you held the crying child, you balanced the checkbook, cooked the meals, kept the holidays alive. You knew your role and you fulfilled it with love, even when you were exhausted. But now the phone rings less. No one needs their shoelaces tied. No one needs to be driven to school or tucked into bed. And you start to wonder, what's my purpose now? But usefulness is not about function. It's about presence. Think about the people who've most impacted your life. Was it because they did things for you, or because they were something to you? Kind, grounding, wise. We often forget that emotional presence, quiet wisdom, and deep listening are some of the most valuable gifts we can offer. In fact, they're rare. Younger generations are flooded with information, but starving for understanding. And you've lived, you've felt. You know, that's not just useful, that's irreplaceable. Being useful now might look different. A smile to the tired cashier, a calm voice on the phone with someone going through a storm, a story that reminds someone who they are. If you ever feel useless, remember this. Someone out there needs exactly what your heart holds. You may not always see the ripple, but it's there. Toxic thought 2, it's too late to change. This thought is like a closed door. It says, don't bother. It says that window has passed. It says, other people grow, you just endure. But here's what I want to offer. Change doesn't stop because your hair turns gray. Growth doesn't freeze because your bones ache. You are a soul, and the soul doesn't have a retirement age. Sometimes change is dramatic. Someone learns a new language at 70, moves across the country at 80, falls in love again at 90. But more often, change is quiet. You soften instead of harden. You call someone you haven't spoken to in years. You stop judging yourself for things you didn't know back then. You give yourself permission to enjoy life without needing to earn it. There's a man named David who never danced in his youth. He was too shy, too worried about how he looked. At 78, he joined a beginner's ballroom class at the community center. I'll be awful, he said. He was, but after a few weeks he smiled and said, "I've never felt so free in my body before." Change doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be yours. And as long as your heart still beats, there's something new to feel, to learn, to forgive, to begin. It is never too late, not for beauty, not for peace, not for joy. Toxic thought 3, nobody cares about me anymore. This is a heavy one. It doesn't always show up as a full sentence in your mind. Sometimes it feels like silence, like looking at your phone and realizing no one called today, like sitting across from people laughing and not being part of the conversation, like sending a message and getting no reply. And slowly a belief forms. I don't matter anymore. But please hear this. Feeling forgotten does not mean you are unloved. Often it means others don't know how to stay connected. They're distracted, overwhelmed, unsure, but that doesn't mean they don't care. Still, that doesn't take away the ache. The human need to feel seen doesn't disappear with age. It deepens. But connection isn't only something we receive, it's also something we create. You don't have to wait for someone else to start the fire. You can light the match, write the letter, join the library group, sit beside someone else sitting alone, ask a neighbor about their life. The heart doesn't age the way the body does. It remains soft, searching, sensitive. And while it's true that some relationships fade, others can begin anew. You are still worthy of being known, of being cherished, of hearing, "I'm so glad you're here." And sometimes it starts with the courage to say, "I've been lonely. Would you like to talk?" Toxic thought 4, I'm just a burden. There's a quiet shame that grows when you begin to need help. You feel it when someone carries your groceries, walks slower to match your pace, explains something twice because you didn't catch it the first time. You start apologizing too often. You downplay your needs. You try to shrink yourself out of the way. You whisper to yourself, "They'd be better off without me." But here's the truth that shame doesn't want you to hear. You are not a burden. You are a relationship. Your needs are not interruptions. They are opportunities for love, for intimacy, for service. Think about the people you cared for in your life. Did you ever think your baby was a burden when they cried at night? Did you resent your spouse when they leaned on you during a hard season? Of course not. When we love someone, we want to help them. We feel honored to be part of their life in a meaningful way. That's how your loved ones feel about you, if only you'll let them. Letting people help you isn't weakness. It's allowing yourself to be loved. And for those without nearby family, there is still a village to be found. In friends, in volunteers, in neighbors. Receiving care is not the end of independence. It's the beginning of new connection. Burdens weigh people down. You lift people up by letting them be part of your life. You don't need to earn your place. You already have one by being here. Toxic thought 5, my best days are behind me. This thought often shows up in memories. You see an old photo, you hear a song, you walk past a place that once held laughter, and suddenly a wave of sadness rises. A belief begins to take shape. That was the good part. What's left now is just waiting. But let's look at this differently. If the best days are the ones when you were fully alive, why can't that still happen? A good day doesn't have to be big. Sometimes it's sipping coffee while watching the birds. Sometimes it's laughing at a joke only you get. Sometimes it's sitting in silence, feeling the warmth of the sun and thinking, I'm still here. We confuse intensity with importance, but quiet moments hold incredible power if we pay attention. There's an older woman named Rosa who says, my best days used to be loud. Now they're soft, but they feel just as full. Your best days might not look like they used to, but they can feel just as meaningful, if not more. You are not done. You are in a chapter that deserves to be savored, and you're still writing the story. Let this chapter be one of depth, of softness, of spiritual beauty. Because it's not about looking back and longing. It's about being right here and noticing that life is still offering you something real. Let me share with you a few real stories. Not of celebrities, not of people in the spotlight, but of ordinary older adults, just like you, who chose to believe that their thoughts could change, and because of that, their lives began to change too. Let's begin with Harold. Harold is 82 years old. He lost his wife 6 years ago. The house they shared for over 4 decades now feels silent, almost hollow. He told me, after she passed, I stopped answering the phone. I stopped going outside. I thought, what's the point? The days blurred together. He ate alone. He slept too much. He stopped caring about what he wore or what day of the week it was. But something shifted one morning. He found an old postcard she had written to him, tucked inside one of her recipe books. It read, "You always made life more beautiful just by being you." Those words broke something open in him, not into sadness, but into remembering. He realized he still had life to give, not in grand gestures, but in simple ones. Harold began walking to the park again. He said yes when a neighbor asked him to join a local gardening club. Eventually, he began teaching others how to grow tomatoes in raised beds. A woman in her 50s said to him, "You don't know how much I needed your voice this week." And Harold smiled, not because he felt young again, but because he finally felt alive again. Now meet Eileen. She's 76. For most of her life, she was a homemaker. She never finished high school and always felt a quiet shame about it. She used to say, "Everyone around me got a diploma. I got diapers and dishes." When her youngest grandchild started school, she decided to do something radical for herself. She enrolled in a GED class. The first week she was terrified. Everyone was younger. Everything was online. She didn't even know how to use a computer mouse properly. But week after week, she showed up. At first for the sake of finishing what she started. But slowly, for herself, and at the end of the semester, she stood in a small ceremony, holding her certificate in her hands. Her voice trembled when she said, "I thought this part of me was lost forever, but I was wrong." Eileen didn't go back to school because she had to. She did it to rewrite a thought she had lived with for too long, that she wasn't smart enough. Now she volunteers to help other older adults learn basic computer skills because she knows what it's like to feel behind. She didn't just change her life, she changed someone else's. And then there's Samuel, 79. He spent most of his life as a factory worker. After retirement, he struggled deeply with the thought, "I'm just taking up space now." He lived alone, rarely left the house, and stopped responding to messages from his adult children. When one of his sons finally visited, he found Samuel in a state of quiet despair. But instead of forcing him out of it, the son did something simple. He brought over old family photo albums and said, "Can you tell me about these people again, Dad?" That night, Samuel stayed up until 3 a.m. writing down names, dates, memories. One story reminded him of another, and another. Within 2 months, he'd compiled an entire family history document and mailed a copy to each grandchild. Now his granddaughter calls him once a week to ask about how Grandpa Joe met Grandma Sylvia. And suddenly, Samuel feels not like a man wasting time, but like a living library. He said, "I used to think I was forgotten. Turns out, I just needed to start sharing again." What do these stories have in common? None of these people reversed time. They didn't get younger. They didn't become who they were at 35. But they did something braver. They challenged the belief that their best days were over. They chose to reach out, show up, and change what they could, starting in their thoughts. They didn't wait for life to knock on their door. They opened yet the door from the inside. And so can you. Your age does not disqualify you from new beginnings. Your past doesn't erase your present power. And your future can still hold healing, joy, and purpose. If you're willing to see it differently, you don't need to become someone new. You just need to return to what's already true, that you still matter, that you're still becoming, that there is still life in your life. but because life gives us moments that hurt, and those hurts become stories, and those stories become beliefs. But beliefs are not facts, and thoughts can be changed. Let me ask you gently, which of these thoughts has lingered in your heart the longest? Which one follows you into the quiet moments, when the house is still, or when the night feels longer than it should? Take a moment now, yes now, to name it, to face it without fear, not to fight it, but to understand it. And once you've named it, I want you to consider something tender, something bold. What if you didn't need to carry that thought anymore? What if you could slowly loosen your grip? What if the years ahead, however many or few, could feel lighter, simply because you no longer believe the worst about yourself? No, you can't change the past, but you can choose how to honor it, and you can decide what kind of peace you invite into your present. Because aging isn't just about time passing. It's about returning to who you really are underneath the roles, the responsibilities, and the noise. You are not behind. You are not too late. You are not forgotten. You are still becoming. And if you needed someone to tell you today that your life still matters, then let it be me. Let this space, this channel, this video be a gentle reminder that you are not walking alone, that there are others just like you, learning to soften, to open, to release, to trust again. If something in this video spoke to you, I'd love to know, which thought are you ready to let go of? You can share in the comments below, or write it privately in your own notebook. But say it somewhere. Let it move from your chest into the world, because naming a thought is the first step to freeing yourself from it. If this brought you comfort, healing, or even just a moment of reflection, consider subscribing to the channel, not because of numbers, but because this is a space we're building together, for wisdom, for peace, for gentle truth in later life. You are invited here. You are welcome here. And if you're not ready to let go of all the heavy thoughts just yet, that's okay too. Just start with one breath, one truth, one small opening. But for now, just know this: you have not missed your moment. You are not too much or too little. You are right on time, and you are deeply, beautifully still here.